By the end of this video, you will be able to create stunning and realistic automotive renders in Unreal Engine in a very fast and simple way. We're going to go through everything step by step, from downloading and importing the car model inside Unreal Engine to setting up the materials. We're going to take a look at some camera, post-process and rendering settings to achieve the most out of Lumen. If you're moving your first steps in automotive with Unreal Engine, this tutorial will give you a great starting point and some quick wins that you can upload to your portfolio. If you're ready, let's get started. Okay, we'll start this tutorial by going to cgtrader.com and search for Volvo S90 and hit the free button. And the first one here, this is the model that we're going to use. Hit the load and you're going to have to wait 20 seconds. And after the 20 seconds in here, you can download the zip file. And after we unzip the file, you're going to have this Volvo S90 folder. And there is an FBX in here. We're not going to use this because it has a number of problems that we don't want to deal with. So I'm going to open a Blender file. And in Blender, you can ignore this message here. It's just instructions on how to customize the model. So now the first thing that I want to check for this model is how big it is, like how many triangles is it made of. And I'm going to do this by going to the overlays and hit statistics. And up here, we can see that we have more than 3 million triangles, which makes of this a really dense, high poly model. And this is perfect for these types of project. When you need to do visualization, it has to be like a realistic render. Models with this density are perfect. So the next thing that I want to check is the normals. And so face orientation here. We need to look for any part that shows up as red. If you see any red part, you have to flip the normals. Otherwise, in Unreal Engine, they will not be displayed correctly. And I've chosen this model because we're not going to have to deal with this, but I just want to let you know that if you see any red part, you have to flip the normals. Now, this is not a Blender tutorial. There are tutorials that explain exactly how you go about it. But yeah, this is what it looks like when the normals are facing the wrong way and they need to be flipped. Okay. And now we can export the model. So if you go to File and Export, we're going to export GLTF 2.0, which is GLB file. And the reason for this is because GLB files, they tend to preserve the materials, all of them or most of them, depending from case to case, and without breaking the texture reference inside Unreal Engine. If you import an FBX, chances are that all the textures references in the material are going to be broken and you have to go and reassign all the textures manually for each material. And now you can imagine for a model like this that has, I don't know, 50 or more materials, it can be very time consuming. So that's why I like to use GLD. Okay, so then choose your destination. I'm going to tick the animation box here, and then in data, this is very, very important. Make sure that the apply modifiers is checked, because otherwise, when you import the model inside Unreal Engine, you're going to be missing half of the car. And just export. Now open a new Unreal Engine project, and now go to the content browser. Just right click, create a new folder, and call it car. I have one in here. Then go to the import button. Go to where file is and click open. Important thing in the import window, check for combine meshes. This has to be unchecked because we need to import everything as separate individual piece. And the reason for this is because if we import it as a single mesh, where we apply the translucent materials for the glass, it's going to cause some problems. And then hit import. Once you hit import, you're going to have this folder, and in the static meshes, you can go ahead and select all of them and import them into the level. So once they're in the level and everything is still selected in the outlier, before you click away, right click and go to move to down here and create a new folder, call it car, and then you have everything in its own folder. So if you need to select all the pieces, it's going to be very easy and you don't risk selecting other things that are present in the level. So you can see materials, most of them have been preserved, and also the material or the interiors, they're all being preserved except for this glass material that we can apply later. And now we can go ahead and download the materials pack from Fab. So go to Fab and search for automotive materials and filter only show free products. Now, if you are using any previous version of Unreal until 5.6, you will have to use this one here, the first one, the automotive materials, which is the old one. And if you are using 5.7 with substrate enabled, then you can go ahead and download the new substrate materials, which is what I'm going to use in this tutorial. So add to project and then go back into Unreal. And now before we continue, if you go to edit and project settings, you need to make sure that to type substrate materials have to be enabled, and substrate GIF buffer format is set to adaptive GIF buffer. It's going to ask you to restart the engine, but wait for it because we have to enable a plugin. So if you go to plugins and search for movie render queue, I have it already enabled, but if you don't have it, tick the box in here and then restart the engine. Once you're back in the engine, we should be all set to continue. So I'm gonna revert back to epic mode so we can start seeing some reflections as well. Very quickly, I'm going to show you how to texture some part of the cars, and the rest I'm gonna leave it to you because otherwise this tutorial will last forever. So I'm gonna start with this door in here. Now, if you look on the detail panel when you select the door, and it's going to select both doors, by the way. The person that made this model did a very good job renaming also the materials, so we don't even need to look at image reference to know what material goes where. Well, here is clear, it's car paint. Sometimes in other parts, especially in the interior, it might happen that you aren't sure of what material goes where, and you kind of have to either look at references or guess it. And we have 5 different slots for each material that goes into these doors. The first one is car paint, and so we're going to change this with our substrate materials. If you go to the content browser and choose substrate materials and paints, I'm going to go with these templates, and I'll choose this paint metallic, and I will assign it to this slot. Now for you it's going to look different because I actually changed the color a little bit. I'm going to show you quickly how to do this because I didn't like the original one. If you open the material and type tint, you can control the intensity, you can control the color and everything. I actually made it darker by pushing this slider down and then click OK. The next one on is black glossy. Black glossy usually indicates plastic glossy, and we also had that. So if you go back to the materials and go to plastics, maybe the base one here in the baked folder, the first one here is plastic glossy, and we can assign it to this slot. Now next one on is chrome, so you can go to metals, basic, and chromium. And then next on is rubber. We have a folder for that one too. Rubbers, base. We can use this first one. And then last one is plastic. So I'm assuming this is like rough plastic. So we can go back to the plastic folder and the base one, and we can use this one here. Okay, now the door is textured. The handle is a different mesh, so if you click on it, you have the 2 slots. You know now how to do it, and same for the mirror, same for the each component of the car. And you can leave the wheels as they are perfect. Just need to apply the glass materials in here. Actually, I'm gonna quickly do that so I can show you. If you go to translucent and windshield, now here you have to make a decision as well. Whenever you see there is two folders, one named PT and the other one Lumen, it means that there are materials that have been optimized for each different rendering style. And so these materials in this folder are optimized for path tracing. This one instead are optimized for Lumen. And we're going to use Lumen for this. So I'm going to go and drag and drop the first material. No, sorry, not the first one, the second one. Yep, that's the one we want for the windshield. So now I'm gonna leave it to you to do the rest. I just want to mention that be careful not to miss any part. So there are like smaller parts like this one. Also make sure you don't miss the smaller parts. This one is supposed to be chrome, and as well as this one. And now let's go back to Fab and let's search for Automotive beige thing. And this is the one I have downloaded. So you can just add to your project and it will be in the content browser. Here it is. So if you open the maps folder, is this one here, the first one. So double click to open it. Now you see here, it's currently all black, and this is because this environment is supposed to be lit by an HDRI. I don't know if the HDRI plugin is already enabled, so I'm gonna check into plugins. That HDRI is not enabled, so I'm gonna go ahead and enable this and restart the engine. Okay, back in the engine, if you click on this plus icon here and search for HDRI, you have this HDRI backdrop here, so you can drag and drop it. And this is a default HDRI that comes with the engine, but we don't want to use this one. The Shugian HDRI that came with this environment that we just downloaded. So HDRI backdrop, and that's the one we're looking for. So if you select this one, and I'm gonna move myself out of the way and go to HDRI in the outliner, and click on the little arrow, you're gonna replace this one, and that's what we're looking for. So currently it's still black. This is due to maybe the size of the HDRI. So if I increase the size, yes, it will light the environment properly now. Okay. So just for you to know, if you don't know what an HDRI is, it's basically a 360 image of a real environment that is applied onto a dome. So that's the dome. For projects like this, it will give us the most accurate and most realistic type of light for outdoor environment. Now we can import our car inside this level. But how are we going to do this? Unless you have applied the materials directly onto the meshes in the content browser, in here, when you're going to drag and drop this car again into the level, it will not be textured the same way we did. And that's my case because I've been very lazy and I didn't go through each individual mesh and texture it. There's an option. So if I go back to the previous level and save this one, I can select all these meshes that are inside the car folder, Control C to copy all of them, and then go back to the beige environment level and just Control V to paste it. Okay, and now we have our folder with all the meshes. I'm gonna move it. So notice how the reflection, the car paint on the glass, it doesn't look the best at the moment. To fix this, we have some settings inside the post-process volume. So let's go ahead and add a post-process volume. And in the detail panel here in the search bar, type infinite and click this box. This means that the post-process volume will affect the entire world and not just the box So still in the post-process volume here in the details panel, type quality. Now bear in mind this will be actually expensive on your system, and so you can use these settings for high quality cinematics. You can use it for visualization purposes. You cannot use this type of settings in games. Will absolutely destroy your frame rate. So you can crank these up all the way up to 2. So lumen scene, lighting quality, final color quality, then lumen reflections. You can crank up this to 2 and enable this one. I think screen space reflection, we're gonna bring it to the maximum. And then the other thing that we're going to change is translucency. And for this, you're gonna need a GPU that supports hardware ray tracing. If you don't have that, unfortunately, you cannot use this. And change this from raster and bring to ray traced. I just noticed I was directly in the way and should be able to see it better now. I see some noise on the translucent material here, which shouldn't be happening. Maybe I'm gonna swap this material. Okay, maybe this is not the correct material. I'm gonna swap this material with this detail panel and just go ahead and drop this onto here. Yeah, that's a lot better. And this one at the back, I think there is something weird happening with this. So let's try to swap the material, and yeah, that's better. And I want to do something with the wheels. I don't like the fact that they're perfectly straight. I want to turn them a little bit, but at the moment we have all these separate pieces, so it will be also the pivot point is not centered. So we don't really have a way to do this at the moment. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to select all these different elements that are part of the wheel. So the brake rotor, the caliper, the tire, the rim. So I'm gonna shift select all of these 4 components, and in the modeling mode, I'm going to export and merge. Merge new object. We're gonna rename it FL for front left wheel. And now the operation will delete the initial input. So these 4 separate card pieces are going to be replaced by the merged one. And that's exactly what we want. So I'm gonna click accept. Now we need to center the pivot point. So if you go still in the X form, if you go to pivot point and then you hit center, the concept, and now you can see the pivot point is right in the center of the wheel, which means we can rotate it, and that already looks so much better. Look at this. Just noticed there is something I missed, so you need to be careful about these little details. Don't do my same mistakes because you are rushing. So I missed the bolts here, so you can click on this one, shift click the rest of the wheel, once again merge, and rename it again to front left wheel delete input. So yeah, and accept. And we need to recenter the pivot point now because the bolts have the pivot point offset to the center. So pick center again, accept, and now yeah, they go together. Very good. So back to the other wheel, same thing, brake rotor, caliper, tire, and rim and bolts. Make sure everything is selected. And now merge, and then we're going to change the name to front right wheel, delete inputs, accept, and then we're going to center the pivot point, center, and there you have it. Now we can turn the wheels. If you think the sky is too bright, you can also go to the HDRI. You have some options, and then you can reduce the intensity. Now we can visualize everything through a camera. So up here, type Cine Camera Actor, and right click and pilot Cinema Camera Actor, and I don't know where it's on the attack. So you can move the camera into an interesting position. And in the settings, I'm gonna change the focus distance. If you enable the debug plane, you can see where exactly you're focusing on. Something like that. And I'm also going to change the focal length from 35 to 50. Introduce a little bit more depth of field. And you can see now the background is blurred and we are focusing on the car, but maybe I need to change a little bit more. And I noticed now we have something weird happening in here and also here, but it might be because of nanite. So if you see this happening, it's likely that this is caused by the nanite. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna disable nanite on this mesh. And that has fixed the problem. And I'm gonna have to do this for this mesh as well. So click Control B and right click and go to nanite and disable nanite for this mesh. See back here, we're gonna have to do the same. Disable nanite. And let's check the sides. Now let's go back to our camera view. My poor laptop is screaming that the video memory has been exhausted, but don't worry, we're only going to make stills out of it. We're not going to make a cinematic, so I should be fine. At this point, we have pretty much everything in the scene, so we can go ahead and create level sequence. And I'm gonna create a folder for this and call it sequences. And we can bring the camera actor inside the sequencer. Just drag and drop it. I'm not too convinced about the front of the car. Maybe I want to support it with an extra light. If I place a light in here, a rectangular light, and if I rotate it like this to simulate the light that bounces off the floor, and I'm gonna reduce the intensity maybe to 10. And now to avoid this strong reflection in the light settings, I'm gonna type specular. And I'm gonna reduce the specular value down so it doesn't reflect that much. Just want a little bit of light bouncing off the floor and hits the front of the car. Move it a little bit here. Yes. So we go rid of that reflection here on the right side. Let's try again, on and off. Maybe still too strong, down to 3. Back in the post-process volume, I want to change the exposure. I forgot to show it to you before. You type exposure and change this from automatic to manual. Everything is gonna go dark. It's normal, so increase the exposure compensation to a value that seems good to you. And I think 11.5 should be good for us. I want to introduce some vignettes. I'm gonna bring it up to the 0.5, should be fine. 0.5. And then another thing that is worth considering, cameras usually have a little bit of noise like film grain. So we can introduce this in the post-process volume as well. With that film grain and enable it, we can bring it up to maybe 0.2. One more thing, we can simulate the chromatic aberration. See if I bring all the way up both of them, you see what happens. So basically this one splits the RGB channel and creates that distortion on the side of the cameras that you see on a real camera. So I'm gonna bring both of them all the way up, and then I slightly reduce the offset to only have like the far edges distorted, and then I'm gonna bring the intensity down to maybe 0.5, 0.6. And then we can introduce some bloom as well. With that bloom, the preferred method here, we're gonna change it to convolution, more expensive but higher quality. I'm gonna increase the intensity to 2.5, and then I want to go down to the convolution, scatter dispersion, and you can play with this one. Maybe three. Three is our final value. And now, as a last thing, we are going to color grade this image directly inside the engine. So up to Windows, Window, and type color grading, and it will open the color grading tab here at the bottom. And I want to go a little bit towards the blue in here to make the image a bit colder. Okay, that looks fine to me. Obviously, color grading, it's a science on its own. You can spend a lot of time on it, just showing you what's possible. There's no right or wrong answer here. It really depends on the look that you're looking for. And I can close this one. Now back in our sequencer, we can go ahead and go to the render tab. And here, the first one is output directory, output resolution. By default is 1920 by 1080. Add a star icon and 2, so that means like times 2, and same for this one, and times 2, and now it's rendering 4K. Now we only want to render one frame because we're rendering a still, and so you need to enable this. Use custom playback range from frame 0 to frame 1. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this JPEG sequence, and I'm gonna add a PNG, then add some anti-aliasing, and we're going to use 64 temporal sample count, so the engine will render 64 subsamples for each frame, and that helps getting rid of any noise. So here it gives you a warning, you need to override the anti-aliasing if you change the values in here, and you can keep this one unknown. Also, I'm gonna add some more render warm-up counts. Click accept, and now we can render local. And by the way, if 4K is too much for you, you can revert back to 1920 to 1080, or you can try 2560 by 1440. Then if you have a very good high-end system, then you can render in 4K, no problem. So hit render. Down here you can see is rendering all the subsamples. If I open my folder, here's our PNG, and if I open it, now we have our beautiful car render. And look what the results that we've got with just simple settings, simple render settings in a real engine. just out of the box like this. We didn't even spend too much time color grading. We didn't add some crazy render settings. And look at the quality of this image. That is phenomenal. And now you can also, while still piloting the camera, you can move it to a different position. And then you can go again to render. And before you hit render, because at the moment we're still on frame 0 to 1, be careful because now this will override your previous image. So you're going to lose that one if you just hit render. So a better way to go about this is either to rename this completely rather than using the formula here, or instead of going frame 0 to frame 1, you can change this from frame 1 to frame 2, for example. And this is going to automatically be picked up by the formula with a different name, and it won't override your previous image. And this brings us to the end of the tutorial. I went ahead and I rendered a few more stills. I highly encourage you to do the same. Experiment with different camera angles, different settings, and this is the best way for you to learn. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something today, and I'll see you on the next tutorial.